are the companies that are using broadband services to compete with video online, with video offerings, like what's coming from the cable company or AT&T Uverse or Verizon Fios. Companies like Hulu and Netflix. Those are considered OTT, over-the-top companies. They're sort of riding above and on top of the cloud. Some conclusions and then some questions if we have time. I know we get done at 12:15, right? So I'm going to have to go kind of fast. There's this whole technological development trend. You've heard of Moore's Law. There's something called Gilder's Law when it comes to optical communications. I think the communication speed triples every year, I believe. There's Metcalfe's Law. You've probably heard of these things. We're looking at distributed and open platform-based communication software. We'll talk about some of this stuff. Capacity growth and new application services on wireless. Wireless is exploding now, especially in rural areas, I think. You're going to see fixed wireless become very common, fixed LTE 4G services. The emergence of next-generation networks. Everything is shifting to Internet Protocol-based. And ubiquity of networks through things like RFID and IP version 6. So these are sort of the general trends, the technological development trends that we're seeing right now. Now, there's last mile technologies, the local loop, or which is the copper pair wires a lot of us still have coming into our homes for our telephone service. If you have DSL, you're running your data service over the local loop copper pair. If you've got AT&T Uverse, anybody have AT&T customer, AT&T Uverse here, which is their triple play service. Mike's got it. You're actually running video with some pretty serious set-top box and caching over the twisted copper pair wire, or the copper pair wire coming into your house, not twisted pair. So DSL technologies on traditional local loops, wireless access server for fixed and mobile communications, 4G services, 4G, LTE, mobile, 100 megabits per second, fixed. In other words, sticking an antenna on top of your house. Gigabit per second, theoretical. They got to get enough fiber out now to the towers, which is when you talk to the technicians that work for Verizon, which I teach a class for Verizon technicians, so I talk to them a lot during the semesters. A lot of them now, what they're doing is they're running as much fiber as they can out to the cell towers in New England. Getting ready for 4G service. Not just 4G from Verizon, but 4G from AT&T. They're running a lot of stuff for AT&T right now. They're running fiber for Sprint, which is WiMAX. So we've got these sort of two competing 4G technologies right now, LTE and WiMAX. AT&T, Verizon, LTE, Sprint, WiMAX. And then there's some satellite-based stuff in remote areas we're seeing now. Power line, broadband over power line, or BPL. Not so much in this country, not yet anyways, but the technology is there to get through the transformers. Some of the things they've been dealing with in the past, they've figured out. And then there's free space optics, which is sort of line of sight, optical communications. If you look at wireline technologies, and this is local loop, in some cases, where we live anyways in New England, where I'm from in New England, some of these copper pairs are 100 years old. I've been using them for 100 years to deliver voice services. So DSL, what DSL is, it's sort of a transitional technology. Eventually those copper pairs are going to be replaced, but technologically anyways, they figured out how to make it last a little longer and how to run it at some pretty high bandwidths. We've got ADSL, asymmetric DSL, ADSL Lite, which is what a lot of us have. If anybody have DSL in their homes right now, you got the filters that hook up to the telephone. That's ADSL or G-Lite. It's splitter-free. You put the little low-pass filters on the phones. The low frequencies go to the telephone. The higher frequencies go to a data connection. You get up around 1.5 megabits per second, up to 5.4 kilometers. That's a pretty long distance. That's like, what? 40,000 feet? No, it's not 40,000 feet. 5.4 kilometers, 16,000. Okay, 3 miles. So symmetrical DSL, you can go up to, which is the same bandwidth up and down, 1.5 megabits per second, up to 3 kilometers. Single pair high-speed DSL, 2.3 megabits per second. you know, you get down into the VDSLs, 5 megabits per second, or 52 megabits per second, I mean. So that's pretty high bandwidth over a set of copper wires that have been in the, either hanging on a pole or in the ground for a long time. So telcos are doing that. Now, this is just a quick diagram. You've got a DSL modem in the home. If this would be a project like AT&T U-verse kind of setup here, where you've got video, voice, and data. DSL modem goes to a telephone country central office or a remote terminal out on the side of the road. There's something called a DSLAM in there, which just splits frequencies. Low frequencies go into the public switch telephone network, which is the local exchange, that LEX thing. And then the high frequency stuff goes to the internet. And they're passing that over ATM, asynchronous transport mode kind of connection. So this is sort of an example of DSL right here. Now, cable broadband, this is what I have in my home. This is the only option I have. A lot of you probably have cable, right? I'm a Comcast customer where I live. 74% of total connections in the United States, this is back in January, this number was taken. 55% in Canada. In other parts of the world, infrastructure is not currently, doesn't currently support bidirectional communication. And this is something that Satyen Gupta over in India is pushing right now. It's still one direction in a lot of India. 55 million homes in India right now still have that old sort of cable delivery system where it's just sending out video signal. People are just using it to watch video. But in the United States here, especially with Comcast, they pretty much have their whole network now converted over to this DOCSIS 3.0 standard. So you can get really pretty high bandwidth in your home right now over a cable connection. And these are just some numbers I pulled off a Comcast website. So you want to check your modems. If you do have a cable modem at home, check and see through your provider. You can just pull the model number, take a look at your provider's website. Most of them have got a database setup where you can see if you've got a DOCSIS 3.0 modem. If you don't, you should get one. You bump up your speeds considerably, and you get a little better, well, much better quality of service too. So we're seeing this kind of shift right now. Now, as far as fiber technology goes, there's this whole fiber to the curb thing by existing operators, AT&T U-verse, Verizon high-speed DSL. They're running fiber out to a certain point, out to a remote terminal or a box on the side of the road, and then that last connection is done over copper. So that's considered fiber to the curb. Fiber to the home, is anybody Verizon Fios customer here? That's pretty nice, isn't it? Your house is actually worth more money if you have a Verizon Fios connection. Yeah, no, it is. It's like having a, I don't know, extra space in your garage, or somebody did a study once. They compared real estate prices in Fios and non-Fios neighborhoods that were in the same town. If you got Fios, your house is worth more money. I don't have it in my house. But that's fiber right up to the side of your house, or into a what they call an ONT, optical network terminal, in your house or hanging on the side of your house. The cable companies for years have been running this hybrid fiber coax cable. Basically, it's cable that, Siamese cable. It's cable that's got both fiber and coax bundled in it. So it's pretty easy. The cable companies got a lot of fiber all over the place right now, and they're converting their network over pretty rapidly. They're running fiber out as close to the customer as possible. Metro Ethernet is becoming really popular right now in the business environment, where they're extending the range of a local area network so you can have the equivalent, what looks like an Ethernet connection, over a long distance. And then there's GPONs, gigabit passive optical networks. This is, again, high-speed optical technology. When you're using all fiber, there's really no theoretical limitation of distance or throughput speeds. So we're seeing this shift. The shift is on now to push fiber out as far as possible into the neighborhoods. Broadband over power line, or BPL, you can get around 4 to 6 megabits per second. And you're using power connections, basically power cables, to send data. This is a possibility for rural in the United States, not so big in the United States yet, but other parts of the country, like India, is taking a pretty close look at this, at BPL. and using that to deliver. We can do it here in the United States. It's just not something the power companies have decided they want to try to sell yet. The Metro Ethernet networks, again, it's Ethernet beyond the local area network. And they'll use a combination of fiber and copper to connect up. And then there's power over Ethernet. You're familiar with this? You don't need to actually power. You can run power over Ethernet over an Ethernet cable. Use some of the wires for power. So you don't have to actually plug the stuff in. You can run the power right over Ethernet. So that's becoming pretty popular. As far as mobile technologies go, there's lots of different technologies. We've seen this sort of evolution, I guess. The big push this year from Verizon is LTE. Next year, LTE will be a big push by AT&T. Both WiMAX and LTE are all IP-based, so you want to make sure your students are coming out with a good internet protocol knowledge and experience and background. The 3G networks right now, they're still switching the voice. In other words, it's sort of like you get an IP, you need an IP address, you need an IP connection to run data on your 3G cell phone. But if you're on a 4G network, it's all IP based. It's voice over IP based. So that's important, and that's both WiMAX and LTE are 100% IP based. It makes the network simpler, easier to maintain. There's fewer parts and pieces, fewer boxes they got to have in the cloud. This whole human area network stuff, I'm not going to talk about that because I don't really know much about it, but is becoming a possibility. Fixed mobile convergence is kind of something we're reading a little bit right now. Interoperability of handsets for all any type of access, not so much in the United States. And again, in other parts of the world, we're seeing people thinking about this stuff. We've still got sort of the big two providers right now are AT&T and Verizon. Verizon wireless 4G phone is not going to work with an AT&T wireless 4G phone. You'll have to go out and buy another phone because of the spectrum they're using. Quad mode, multi-band handsets. You kind of have this now if you have an iPhone. You've got a phone with a bunch of different radios in it that can connect up all kinds of different ways depending on what kind of services are available and what you actually got turned on the phone. Software-defined radios, cognitive radios, again, these are sort of futuristic things, and we can skip along. I'm going to skip this. But there's been a whole emergence of wireless technologies over the last 20 years or so. There's this trend toward convergence, it's next generation networks. Again, convergence of voice, video, and data services. And now a lot of time, people are talking about like unified networks has become a big term right now. Maybe you've heard that term. This sort of shift from saying converged networks to unified networks. When most people are talking about unified networks, they're talking about voice, video, and data over mobile, some sort of mobile devices. So you're seeing those four things. So you've got this sort of common infrastructure. You're getting, you get one bill, triple play service, whatever you call this stuff, but it's voice, video, and data, leading to all kinds of new multimedia services. With the use of things like IPv6, they can guarantee quality of service, things like security, reliability, flexibility, single information plug, triple play. So you plug in once or connect once, voice, video, and data services. Customers want. This is a customer user point of view. This next generation ecosystem they're calling this stuff. But there's services, okay, which are voice, video, and data services, all kinds of different services. There's fixed access, and it's high speed, broadband or high speed, IP-based connectivity. Doesn't matter if it's wired, it doesn't matter if it's wireless. It could be a cable connection over coaxial cable, could be fiber, could be broadband over power lines, so it could be coming in on a power connection. That's what people are calling next generation fixed access. As far as transport, how this stuff is moved across that transmission medium It's carrier Ethernet and IP, multi-protocol layer switching. So we're seeing this shift. Again, Ethernet and IP are really, really important if you want your students to come out with a good sort of, I wouldn't call it future-proof, but a background that's going to help them with their careers as they move forward. There's the architecture is service-oriented architecture. I've got a picture of that coming up in a minute. There's mobile, 4G services right now. That's what's hot, or the next few years. Everything's shifting to IP version 6. As far as licensing go, unified regulation, we have a big problem with regulation here in the United States with the FCC right now. But the whole idea of converged regulation is really, really important. And the devices, the majority of devices are all going to be mobile. They're handheld, they're portable, they're battery operated, and I think we can all see that coming pretty. It's already here. Everybody here's probably got one, right? You got an iPad, you got a smartphone. Most people do. And this is a really busy diagram. The other one's even more busy. But there's 3 layers here. I guess what is what I want you to see here. There's an application layer which provides the services. There's a control layer, which is the switching basically and connectivity into the internet, and then there's all this transport stuff. And there's opportunity across the whole IT and communication spectrum. My background is more like here, transport layer, because I come at it more from electrical engineering side, so I come at it from the bottom and move up. But if you're a computer science type person, you come at it from this way. So again, there's opportunity at all these different layers for some really nice careers, I think, here in the United States. This is the stuff that probably won't be offshored, for example. Somebody has to be here to do some of this work anyways. And this is even a busier diagram. I can't even see that. But again, different planes. This one breaks it down 4 ways: a service plane, a control plane, a transport plane, an access plane. So again, there's different levels and different opportunities for your students. As far as broadband service trends go, the high-speed internet is still the killer app. Whatever you're doing with it is still, that's where it's at right now. That's why people are buying, that's what people are paying for and they're willing to pay for. Things like video on demand, interactive TV, IPTV, pay-per-view, time-shifted TV, video conferencing. Is the stream working now, John? No. Oh, good. Okay, we were having trouble with the stream before, but it's working now. Quad play, data, voice, video, mobility, virtual private networks, which a lot of you have some experience with. Again, these are all kind of buzzwords, but these are things you want to think about with your students. Voice over IP, everything is going VoIP, wired or wireless, doesn't matter. Interactive gaming, simulations, online assessment. There's huge opportunity for all kinds of stuff in the gaming world. And then there's what people are calling the 4 E's: e-governance, e-learning, e-health, and e-commerce. These are going to be big, big fields that our students will end up working in, a lot of them in different ways. Now, as far as wireless spectrum goes, we have a spectrum problem here in the United States. It's a very limited resource right now. People are fooling around with the technology, trying to figure out, and then there's lots, we could have a whole discussion about spectrum. I write a lot about it in my blog, actually. But there's ways we could be doing things we could be doing with existing spectrum here in the United States we're not doing because of some of the politics involved with the FCC. But there's different kinds of antenna arrays. There's all kinds of neat stuff going on in the wireless industry now, because that's the shift. It's mobile and it's wireless. I don't want to talk. I guess I'll talk a little bit about the politics. But the regulatory regime needs to be, I think anyways, technologically neutral. And we need some strong policy objectives from the FCC here in the United States, and they need to follow this stuff and not let the lobbying and the politics get involved with this stuff. I think we need to encourage more entrepreneurship. I know there's some people from, is it Kingsborough here? That have an entrepreneurship program. So those are I think that's another nice piece to think about with your students, your technology students. The whole idea of cooperation and competition. We need to move towards a unified licensing sort of regime, and you know, lighten up on the regulation, sort of hands off on the regulation. I think these are the things that are going to push the enable broadband here in the United States at a higher level. We can start competing with the rest of the world. Now, this is just another example of a converged broadband network. Wire and wireless, any media, voice and data, any mode, telecom and broadcasting, any service, up to the equivalent of a converged service right now, offering from the different providers. So, I know I'm going really fast, but here's what I think we're seeing now. What lies ahead? We're going to see, as far as technology goes, broadband and wireless are going to continue exponential growth. The majority of new voice subscribers will continue to be on wireless. It's where it's all going. It's all going wireless. Voice over IP becomes an enabling and future-proof option. No more switching. If you think about switching, if you replace the S with a $sign, anytime you see the word in telecom anyway, switching, it's expensive. The switches are expensive. They're expensive to maintain. So it's all going away. So we're seeing this shift to this next, the migration to this next generation architecture, which is what 4G services, LTE and WiMAX are. The last mile access issues hopefully will start to vanish as things become demonopolized. Alternate technologies and unbundling of services. So prevent people from locking into long-term contracts. Those are the kinds of things. As far as applications and services go, internet telephony, again, is going to grow along with converged services. We're seeing demand for things like intelligent networks, portability, again, the 4 E's. So there's, again, lots of different, these are things that our students are going to be working on. Mobile cache, all the location-based services stuff you can do now with your smartphone that has a GPS radio in it. Service control with customers and on-demand services. I'll talk a little bit more about cloud in a minute, but software as a service, app stores is all exploding right now. And affordability for both the equipment and also for bandwidth here in the United States. So I guess I'll click over to cloud services right now. I'm going fast. But I want to talk just a little bit about cloud services from a little different perspective than we heard last night, more generic. We saw a really good presentation on what EMC is doing. Maybe we can talk a little bit about what's going on in general with these kinds of services. So it's internet-based computing, or remote computing. It's often subscription-based or it's free. Okay, it's on demand. Typically, it's managed by a third party. You've got all kinds of automatic stuff going on that's optional. You've probably noticed this with your operating systems now, and you can do backups, synchronization across devices. If you've got an e-reader, you can sync with your Kindle, with your desktop, with the Kindle mobile app running on your iPhone. Those are some of the things you can do with cloud computing. So I kind of this is broken down here, business to consumer players. If you look at the different players here, Apple is huge in this area with their different product line. I don't think I have Google Plus on here. Google Plus is pretty neat if you haven't tried it yet. Microsoft's a player too. They've got some products here. Their SkyDrive, Office 365, their Azure, which is their cloud app. Amazon's got Cloud Drive, Cloud Player, Kindle, their Amazon Web Services, even Yahoo. You could call, I guess, Yahoo Mail and Flickr, both business to consumer players in this business. And then there's a company called AnyFile, Amazon Cloud Drive. They run an Amazon Cloud Night BoxNet. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is AnyFile. Oh, these are services. So AnyFile, the Cloud Drive, and BoxNet are two good examples. Apple's iCloud. Music, Spotify, which is just sort of hitting the United States right now. Anybody got a Spotify account? I know a few people. Mike's got one. I didn't get one yet. They won't give me one yet. Google Music. Anybody using Google Music? I got that. Mike's using that too. Apple iCloud. Photos, Flickr. You've heard of these services, right? Video, Netflix, YouTube. There's something called Ultraviolet, which you probably haven't heard about. Pleasant presentations, SlideShare, SlideRocket, social networking stuff, Facebook, Google Plus, I would add there. It's not there. OS, Chrome OS, the iOS, Apple's operating system. There's different Office products online right now. These are all cloud services. Backup remote services like Dropbox, Carbonite. You probably heard of these things. All cloud-based services. And they all require bandwidth, right? And connectivity, broadband connectivity, which is why that first part of this presentation, that broadband stuff, that mobility, the access, is very, very important. You can't do any of this stuff without a connection. As far as data center acquisitions, and there's some pretty interesting things right now going on that you may or may not be aware of, but the telephone companies have been out buying data center services. And the biggest one here is Verizon's purchase of Terramark back in January. That's huge. I forget what they paid for it. It was about $6 billion. But Terramark is basically a data center company, a company that will host different cloud services. Verizon had their own cloud service product. So that in what they've really done is they've kind of doubled down as a provider in this this cloud services stuff and this data services stuff. It's big. You know, they see this shift away. It's already happened away from voice. You know, how's Verizon gonna? How are they gonna do business? What kind of business are they gonna be doing? So they're moving pretty heavy into this data center storage cloud space, I guess we should call it. And there's others too, NTT, Telefonica, you know, all around the world. We're seeing these telcos acquire data center services. And there's some really good data center curriculum. EMC, Kim last night announced a new product, a new course they have coming out on data centers. IBM's got a whole bunch of stuff out, good stuff that you can take and use to teach some of this data center stuff. So we're seeing this shift and transition. As far as developer platforms go, these are kind of the big ones right now. These are things you could look at with some of your students, or you'll be looking at in the future maybe. Salesforce, VMware's got Cloud Foundry, Microsoft's got Azure. Microsoft's actually got, I believe, an academic course put together for Azure right now that looks really good. Amazon's got something called Beanstalk. Maybe you've heard of this, maybe you haven't. And Google's got their app engine. But again, these are the platforms. If you're teaching more from the IT side and the programming side, these are the kinds of things your students will be working on, if that's the side of the business they go into. Computer versus a cloud. This is pretty interesting. As we shift, as a computer files, hard disks are cut out of the ecosystem, and the cloud replaces them. What does that mean? Connectivity is critical. Again, you can't do this without a connection. And the computer ecosystem, at least the computer as we know it, maybe you think about that desktop machine that a lot of us probably aren't even using anymore. Microsoft and Intel, right now, with their existing product line and the way they're doing business, they kind of stand to lose right now. But they're shifting, they're transitioning right now, moving into this cloud kind of service. What else can we say? Infrastructure and connectivity. Syncing, backups, updates are going to be done over Wi-Fi. So wireless. By wireless, I mean like, you know, 3G, LTE, 4G services, you know, the wireless you buy from Verizon Wireless or AT&T Wireless. And so Wi-Fi becomes even more important. And ultimately, Wi-Fi is going to imply fiber. It's going to imply getting enough fiber out to a location that plugs into a wireless access point, is connected into a wireless access point. So the Wi-Fi sort of becomes like the last 100 feet maybe, or whatever you want to call it. Not the last mile, but the last short little distance. So it implies fiber. Other network elements, things like data centers, servers may also become more important. Apple and Google, though, are using their own private networks. Google bought a ton of dark fiber that was back in the late 90s. There was all kinds of excess fiber run all around the United States, and Google was buying it for like pennies on the dollar. They own it. A lot of it it's just sitting in the ground right now. It hasn't been used. But they have the potential to be, I keep telling my Verizon students, someday you'll be driving around in a truck, a Google truck with Google on the side of it. The operators have control over the last mile. By operators, I mean like AT&T and Verizon. But Apple and Google may control all the other network elements. So the next battlegrounds, Wi-Fi, fiber to the home, okay? Verizon's built out Fios. They're not going anywhere else with it right now, at least in the what they've agreed to do, they're going to do. The town I live in will never get, I don't think we'll ever get Fios. There's not enough people live in it. We're too spread out. But Google, with their fiber project, and Google's going to start lighting this stuff up. It's going to be interesting. And then we've got Amazon Web Services provides cloud services to smaller players. Basically, you don't like Timur was saying last night. You don't have to install, run your own servers if you've got a small business. You just contract and you buy server space from Amazon. The whole idea of hosting, co-location, and housing, where this stuff's going to go and who's going to maintain it is part of that infrastructure. As far as data goes, it's a huge lock right now for Apple and Google. They control subscribers' data, okay? And to some degree, Amazon does a little bit too. So this is really scaring the operators, the telco operators anyways. Will operators have an answer and provide these services? Verizon with this Terramark acquisition, they're going to start encouraging not just business to business, but business to consumer. Put all your data in our cloud with automatic backup and syncing. These are the kinds of products we're going to see them try to sell us. The Apple system is closed. Plays on iOS devices only right now anyways. Apple and Google are going over the top while operators have their own managed and secure infrastructure. So there's this conflict right now. We're starting to see things like data caps. Why? Because of Apple and Google and Hulu and some of these other providers providing these over-the-top services. Zmail, like Hotmail, Yahoo, Mail, Gmail, the basis of developing a cloud strategy. I don't know. That's just a question, I guess. It's part of it. I guess it's where you start. Other players, I wonder anyways about Facebook. I know Facebook is huge right now, but how is it going to go? Is it going to go the way of MySpace? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. But there's others, Dropbox, Zoho, Flickr. Do these kinds of companies have a future? Don't know. I think Facebook's going to start working pretty closely with Microsoft personally, because Microsoft can provide all these other services. With Google Plus now, you've got social networking. You can do the Facebooky kind of stuff, but they can integrate all their other products right now. All the other stuff Google already has up in the cloud. Ericsson is just an example of a wireless device manufacturer. They offer managed services for those devices. And will they partner up with the telcos? Maybe. Is ultraviolet still relevant? Ultraviolet is this. It was a way to distribute copyrighted video content on the web. It was something that was developed about a year ago. The attorneys really like it, but it's something you may want to. It's interesting to read about that particular product, and see if it survives. The whole idea of protecting copyright on this stuff is, again, a big piece, and that's what ultraviolet attempts to do. Is storage too expensive now? Okay, and this, I think, is a question a lot of people are asking. It probably is still a little too expensive right now. You can buy a 2 terabyte disk now for under $100 if you search around. You can get them probably closer to $50 now, actually. On the other hand, if you look at Amazon's S3 service, it's 12.5 cents per gigabyte per month for its cloud storage. If you use this figure, a customer that wants to store 2 terabytes in the cloud for 3 years is going to pay about $4,500, or $2.19 per gigabyte. So that's really expensive. So you're seeing people not quite shifting yet. It's still too expensive. They're going to go out over to Staples and buy that cheap terabyte drive. Clouds in general, the negatives are security and privacy. These are what people are concerned about. Reliability requires, again, broadband access. Latency in the network. The fragmentation of digital media across multiple clouds and devices is a negative, the synchronization process. Positives, better functionality and flexibility, faster and automatic updates. Basically, everything is as a service. There's cost savings, and this shift from expending a lot of money on hardware to spending more money on software or subscription is a positive for a lot of business. Consumer benefits, a lower cost, again, software as a service, which is SaaS, something you want to think about with your students. Slim PC, or whatever you call these things, thin clients. Buy once, play anywhere. The whole streaming process, like we're doing here. Again, synchronization across multiple devices, and the ability to share among family members is a big thing. Maybe share an ebook, those kinds of things. Share music. You buy something once on iTunes, you can share it on 5 devices, I think now. What's telco's future in the cloud? The infrastructure, fixed and wireless, is really expensive to replicate, so I think we've got the providers in place right now in this country. Cloud computing, I think we're going to see these data centers. Right now we've got these big data centers, big massive data centers. They're going to have to spread these out. So they'll probably be popping data centers in some of the central offices. Most of the telco central offices are these big, they look like fortress buildings. They're really designed to survive an explosion. Most of them are empty right now. They've replaced all the switching with these little computer switches. So there's an opportunity now for companies like Verizon and AT&T to start putting data centers, the equivalent of data centers, in these central offices. And I think they're looking at those kinds of things. So you may want to think about some sort of a data center program, or at least maybe a data center course with your students, or start thinking about it. It may not be time to start teaching it yet, but it could be. Services, sales and marketing. The whole idea of these over-the-top players, they're building direct to consumer relationships. Again, there's these data caps going on right now. They're starting to get squeezed a little bit by the providers. So these are the things that we're seeing. I've got any questions here? That's the Riddler. Yeah. Go ahead.
Why would you say, in summary, the U.S. is so far behind Asian countries in telecommunications?
I knew somebody was going to ask that. One, politics. Yeah, unfortunately, that's my opinion. For what my answer is worth. Yeah.
2 questions. One about cloud, the other one about security and wireless. I've never heard. What's the optimum number of users that are suitable to use cloud? For example, if you're a 3-person insurance agency versus University of California. And also security, all these technologies, where is the security in wireless?
Those are both good questions. It really depends on, I think I mentioned, it depends on bandwidth and bandwidth capacity. Like anywhere, we're trying to stream at a high resolution here. John had to back off on the resolution of the stream because we don't have enough bandwidth. You basically run up to your maximum capacity. And security, I know Sam could talk a lot more about security than I could. It's a concern. It's definitely a concern. But I think a lot of those things will be worked out over time.
I know Sam, I'd call him.
You alluded earlier to the problems with bandwidth throttling, that the content,
right.
Bandwidth throttling by the various providers because they don't have enough.
Yep.
People are down. What did I hear that time? Netflix is taking like 50% of the bandwidth
Right.
in the US.
Oh yeah, it's
some statistic like that.
at night. Yeah, at a certain time, it's actually more than that.
And then the second issue is the content providers, again, Vivendi, Universal, and so on, basically saying this internet thing has to go because people are stealing our content.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you see those two
Well, that's what that.
problems and issues?
Yeah, that's what this.
coinciding?
Well, the copyright issues. That's what this ultraviolet project is attempting to do. Kids are still going to steal it, though, right? I mean, there's ways to steal it. Now, you also asked about throttling. I think that's a direct response to the popularity of things like Netflix and Hulu. You know, these are considered OTT, over the top. You know, it's stuff that's sort of riding on the cloud, and Google is probably in the same position. You know, so you're seeing the telcos, the providers, the people providing the bandwidth. This is their reaction. I think what's going to happen is this is sort of a temporary thing. I'm hoping, because it's sort of like the price of gas, right? The gas is really, really expensive until one gas station drops their price, and then everybody drops their price. Right now, they've all sort of got together like OPEC, and they're all slapping these caps on. But as they get the capacity out, as they get more fiber out to the cell towers, as they get more cell towers and micro cells and all this stuff, it gets in place. Infrastructure gets built out in place. They'll be able to provide higher, high bandwidth services, and I think they'll start to pull the caps. I hope. Hopefully, it's just a temporary thing. Don't know though.